gonna swim, bike, and run in the Kona sun. We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the Kona sun 2021.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. We are brought to you by Challenge North America, Hoka One One, Credo Tri, Amp Human Velo Fix, Four Seasons Walleye, Normatec, Form Goggles, You Can, Canyon Bikes, and of course, our Challenge Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, Olympic rower, professional cyclist, Ironman champion, Mr. Cameron Wurf joins us. Hey, Cam, great to catch up, bud. How you doing?
Hey, Bob. Good. And if I ever need an ego boost, I come on this show because those introductions just really light me up. So thank you once again.
Well, you know, it's funny. I remember a couple of years ago we were chatting and you had done 8 Ironmans that summer. And I was like, I can't believe you did 8 Ironman in one summer. And you were like, hey, I feel like I could do a 2.4 mile swim and a 112 mile bike ride pretty much every day. And I'm looking this year as a professional cyclist, I think you raced 35 days. So basically you did like 35 Ironmans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Racing this summer and being in the Vuelta and just that whole going from Ironman to that, how hard was that?
I mean, by the time I got to the Vuelta, I actually felt pretty good, sort of back to, familiarity with the bunch. The start of the season really kicked me in the backside. I was, that really hurt. I had no idea it would feel like that. I expected, training at quite a high level, obviously still competing at a high level, albeit in another sport, but a lot of cycling, that I'd be able to slot straight back in and be fine. But cycling moved on a lot in the time I was away. Obviously the younger generation, it's much more explosive. And it was, I wasn't in control of the pace anymore. These young kids were absolutely kicking everybody's ass, and especially mine. And so it took, I had a couple of races before lockdown. Obviously then we had lockdown, which was quite fortunate for me because it gave me time to work on those areas of my fitness that we identified I was extremely lacking in if I was going to be able to be of any, real use to the team. And by the time we came out the other side of lockdown, I felt pretty confident in the Peloton and had a couple of races in Belgium. I raced the Ardennes Classics leading up to the Vuelta, which obviously is, the highest level of one-day racing. And by the time I got to the Vuelta, I actually felt, quite comfortable with all that again. But, just having said that, the Vuelta, it was 18 days, not 21, but it was obviously didn't really change much. But as far as say, if you look at an average power goes, basically average what I would average for Kona, 18 days straight or above. That was probably the lowest that I averaged, in a day was what I'd average in a bike split in Kona, or any other race for that matter. So, it was a bit of an adjustment for the year, that's for sure. So,
the Volta basically 1,800 miles over 18 days, a couple rest days. You got 4 flat stages, 8 hilly stages, 5 mountain stages, an individual TT. Did you feel like you were getting stronger throughout, or was it one of those things you were hanging on at the end?
No, I felt better and better as I went on. It's interesting because I've basically generally trained 6 days a week. I mean, anyone that follows me on Strava, none of my training's that big a secret. I train pretty solidly for 6 days, have a day off. That's just how I like to do it. And the Vuelta this year was 6 days on, 1 day off. So it was very familiar to me. And obviously we train that way because that's how I improve. So I guess mentally I set myself up to feel like I would get better and better as the race went on. And I certainly became, I guess I think I did a good job, every day for the team. I feel like I did what I was asked and I was always there. One thing we did very well as a team was we didn't miss a single thing, a crosswind. We didn't miss a dangerous corner. We didn't miss a split in the Peloton. We always had Richard right where he needed to be. And he actually lost the race on time bonuses. You know, I mean, we didn't have a super strong team. We only had 6 guys in the end. We lost one very early. We lost another one because his wife got COVID and he had to go home. So we're down to 6 guys, and you know, we couldn't afford. No one could afford to have a bad day. You know, everyone had to do exactly what was asked of them every single day, and I think a couple of days that stick out were 2 days where it was miserable weather, like freezing cold, and both days raining as well. Both days had a very, you know, decisive descent where that was the coldest part. You know, you're doing like 30, 40 mile an hour down a descent when it's, you know, say 20, 26 Fahrenheit, 25, you know, minus degrees in the driving rain. And obviously at the top of both those climbs, everyone's sort of scrambling to put jackets, gloves, etc. And I was like, well, I know, and always after the descent would come the final climb for the finish or something like that, some decisive section. So I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to help Richard in the final, but I can make sure he starts this descent at the front. And so both of those descents, I didn't even put a jacket on. I just went down in my cycling jersey, full triathlete style, racing in a skin suit, and made sure he started that thing at the front. And both days he took, you know, the first time was when he went back into the red jersey. By the time I started dropping back through the peloton, Roglic, I was dropping back a long way. There was gaps everywhere. And Roglic took a couple of minutes to find me. And I looked across and saw him and got on the radio. I said to Richard, go, go, go. Roglic has dropped, you know. And they had no idea, you know. And because I saw Roglic at the top putting his gloves on, you know. It was like, wow, this is an opportunity. And so we did those things really, really well as a team. I felt like I didn't miss anything. And yeah, I felt great. You know, I didn't feel any worse at the end than really what I did at the start. In fact, I felt, you know, quite a bit stronger, and you know, another week would have been fantastic. You know, Richard was also getting stronger. So no, it was a great race.
So you've spent so many years as part of a team. When you're rowing, you're on a team. When you're cycling, you're on a team. And then you move into this crazy world of pro triathlon, and you're your own guy, right? You surround yourself with the people you want to train with, but your own person. Then you get back into the team atmosphere. Did you like that?
I did. I mean, I guess also the last years I've kind of remained pseudo part of the team anyway. You know, I'd spend all my time with them. I do a lot of camps with them, even though I'm doing my own training. Spend a lot in Andorra. I'm obviously riding with the guys all the time anyway. You know, the sport almost feels very much a part of what I do in triathlon, and over the time have become even more and more supportive. I mean, one of the special things has been, okay, the interest from within the team, but more so from other teams. You know, so many riders that are knowledgeable about what I've been doing, or have a friend in the sport, they want to tell me they know such and such. You know, has been really and to say that they're really following and admire what we do. I mean, Mark Cavendish, for one, he thinks we're just completely insane. He said he did the bike leg in Dubai and, you know, got absolutely smashed by Blumenfeld and Gustav and the guys. And then the comprehension of how fast they actually ran as well, because Mo Farah was there and explained to him how quick these guys are. You know, he tells everyone in the bunch, whenever I'm racing with him, he's like, that guy's nuts. What that sport does, that's nuts. We think we're tough. Those guys are freaking insane. So, you know, to hear things like that, where for years triathlons feel like it's been bashed over the head, you know, that's been really special. And if I've been able to, you know, bring some credibility to that, bring some attention to how good these guys really are, then, you know, yeah, that's fantastic. So, yeah, okay, it's being part of the team is obviously probably something I was already pretty used to, but, you know, feeling a part of the sport and feeling how much support I've got from within the sport, that was probably, you know, the really special thing for me. And if I could have a spreadsheet of all the athletes that last off season, so 2019 into 2020, were running or swimming for that matter, as opposed to this year running and swimming, it feels like, I honestly, 90% of the peloton, for example, is running, and quite a number of them have been swimming. And, you know, I've got messages about shoes and, you know, swim gear and different things, you know, what we should. I'm like, gosh, I don't want to give you advice because you get injured or something and it's going to be on my head. But, you know, I think it just shows, you know, what respect they have for us. And hopefully, you know, I've set a good example in that. So that's been good.
What guys do you think are going to go and do a triathlon at some point, maybe when their cycling career is winding down?
Oh, well, for starters, I mean, Warren Barguil, he was actually all geared up to do one in December. It got cancelled due to COVID. It was some sort of, an exhibition type race in I think the Dutch Antilles, the islands out there somewhere. He got invited to, and yeah, he was on to me during the Vuelta about his swimming preparation. He was full gas into it, and but he said he'll definitely do an Ironman. And I mentioned him because that's like the last person I would expect to want to do such a thing. Davide Formolo for sure. Of course, ones that have talked about it for a long time. Geraint, obviously. Victor Campenaerts has talked about it. Thomas de Gent, John Dagenkolb had a lot of chats to me about it. I mean, there's just a boatload of guys within the bunch that have all said that they'd love to give it a crack. So, but they also say they just want to do it. Even my own teammate, Andre Amador, he's like, look, I just want to do one. I just want to know what it feels like. I think they have a bit more appreciation now for the level of the top guys. And I guess Talansky coming across probably gave him a bit of an eye-opener to that. But potentially me being successful, they felt, oh, well, maybe it's not that hard. But I think since I've come back into road cycling and potentially, made the Peloton suffer a few days, they realise, oh, no, that those guys, operated at a pretty high level. So it's more an interest in just seeing what an Ironman is like. People are quite fascinated by it. It's awesome.
Did it surprise you when you left the Peloton 2017? You were in 2016. You came over to triathlon. Did it surprise you the level that guys were riding at?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I got walloped. The first I raced Lionel in a half. I remember he took minutes out of me. I was like, whoa, I got to, I thought I didn't even need to train. I thought I'd be fine. And anyway, I mean, that was a good kick in the pants. And I guess since then I've, been pretty successful in that regard, and been able to build my way through the sport. But without a doubt, it was a huge shock. And I said the same to Andrew. I don't think he wanted to listen, but that's fine. And Adam Hansen, I mean, he's obviously talking about taking it seriously. And I mean, I've been in touch with him even today. We were talking about some swimming and some different things. He, everything I can to help him. He's probably a bit more open to advice, or maybe he has a bit more respect for me. We've sort of had similar roles in cycling teams over the years. Not that I'm going to say I'm anything like an Adam Hansen. He's had an absolutely phenomenal career, but I guess we can appreciate he has a bit more, understanding of the level I'm at, and and so we've had a lot of dialogue. But he's certainly under no illusions as to how strong the guys are. I mean, he raced Florida last year, and no one takes 180k easy. I mean, he was quite a long way behind Starkowitz, so and Joe Skipper and the Hoff. So he realizes it's a mighty high level. So it's obviously going to be exciting to see what he can do when he be great if he made it to Kona, obviously.
So you're wearing your Lionel Sanders shirt. I love that.
Oh yeah, always. I actually, I've been up a few hours, but with the baby, running around, so haven't had time to get out of my pajamas. But this is my PJs. So a bit of what is it? I don't know, reverse psychology. No limits. You sort of wake up every day with that on my mind. Not taking any shortcuts, getting stuck into the work. So yeah.
So you got to watch Lionel and the rest of the guys at Challenge Daytona this weekend with, $1.15 million at stake. It was a 1.2 mile swim, and then the whole bike ride, about 50 miles on the racetrack. And then the run was on the racetrack, about 11 miles. What'd you come away with from watching that?
I mean, they did a fantastic job with the broadcast. I felt Belinda, Granger in the commentary, she was fantastic. I mean, she's covered a lot of the challenge races I've done, and people have commented on that. So I guess that was no surprise. But working in with the two NBC guys, especially the voice of NASCAR, I loved it when he'd say, for example, Lionel Sanders is running in the 8th spot. I mean, it sounded like him calling Jimmy Johnson running it, in the 8th spot.
Yeah,
in a NASCAR race. It was really cool. Obviously, I follow the NASCAR. Well, Jimmy's off to IndyCar next year, so I've got to change sports. But Yeah, no, it was the coverage was obviously second to none. I mean, we've never seen anything like that in the sport, and that was fantastic as far as the race goes. I guess, you didn't really see a lot of surprises. I mean, I guess the interesting thing watching the guys, it looked like the top swimmers this year with issues with pools and whatever suffered a lot more from that than what the guys that don't swim so well. I mean, guys like myself or Sebi or Lionel that can't swim very well, we actually can't get a lot worse. Whereas the top swimmers, it seems, if they don't swim very much, they don't swim that well. They lose quite a few gears.
Yeah.
So that was really quite fascinating to witness. On the bike, we saw some phenomenal speeds. I mean, the guys now are absolutely just smoking, flying, but also seemingly riding with a disregard for the fact that they have to run. And we saw, you saw a lot of injuries or a lot of blow-ups, and you just really hope that none of those guys that did get injured, it's anything, severe. It's a long way to come from Europe to go home limping. So that's a shame. But, the two athletes that showed real respect for the distance of the race, and probably the fact that they knew that the bike leg, is such a sustained effort. There's no free kicks on a flat course. You have to pedal the whole time. Apart from, I guess some of the points where we saw a bit of drafting going on, which fortunately was, the commissaires did a great job in pinging those athletes. Gustav and Paula, they won convincingly because they did a really smart race. We didn't even hear about Gustav until he got off the bike, until he started running. I mean, he didn't even know where he was, but he was very controlled, did his own thing. And just steamrolled through the field. I mean, was it George Goodwin that was third?
Yeah, we got third.
Yeah. So I raced him in Salau a couple of years ago. He and Pablo de Pina smoked them both. Obviously, I've only ever raced one half Ironman, and I won. But he was very young then, and a really lovely young fella, and very determined. And you could tell that he had a big future. So it was awesome to see him on the podium. Of course, Matt, he's been around forever. Finally in a really big race, we've seen him do well at, some of the regional events, but, in Kona, I personally haven't actually seen him, haven't seen him up there on the course, but, which is a shame because you hear so much about him, being such a great runner and so many great performances over the years in regional races. So it was awesome to see him do well as well. So, it was just cool. A good race. Yeah.
Yeah, good for the sport. Definitely
great
good
for the sport. Definitely great for the sport.
So when I look at 2019, you win Ironman Australia, break course record, win Ironman Italy, break the course record, third at Challenge Roth, run 250 there. You had a phenomenal year.
Yep.
And talk a little bit about, you were not a runner, right? You didn't really have a background in that. To go from ground zero and become a guy who consistently, run 255 in Kona and run 245 in Italy, and consistently is running, sub 3 and running well. How have you done that and not hurt yourself? Because a lot of times when people have the great engine that you have from cycling, when they get in the running, they tend to go too hard, too quickly, and they hurt themselves and they don't stay healthy. And you've stayed healthy.
Yeah, obviously the guys at Nike, I've got some of the best advice around, and Elliot's team. And one thing they told me about him is he realizes it's a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And building that program and not overreaching, it's much more beneficial, and obviously for consistency of performance, being able to rock up on the big days or whenever you're racing and be consistently performing at an extremely high level, is through consistent training, being able to string together months and months and months of work and not getting injured. And I guess, in his case, that means they scale back his the pace, I guess. I mean, they don't overreach. He doesn't overreach. He doesn't, sprint as hard as he possibly can, which is, generally where you risk injury a hell of a lot more as opposed to running within yourself, similar to any sport, really. So it's just sort of being fortunate enough to have some of the best advice on the planet in the sport of running, to know where that level is, where you're not digging too deep, so that every day you can get up and you can keep progressing, probably at a slower rate than if you were more aggressive with your training. But you bank on the fact that long term, you're going to have a good, consistent, longer career, where you can perform, each and every day that you go out to training and then go to racing. So that's been the big thing. There's no way in the world, I hear these guys doing 5Ks and, their times they do, 14 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, and I've never even run that fast for 5 meters yet. In an Ironman, I mean, even Lionel's best marathon, I think it's maybe a 42 or 43. I mean, it's barely any quicker than mine. And he's been doing it for 10 plus years. So, I'm pretty happy with our team and the advice I've got and the program I have, and that's, it's very conservative, but I think for our sport, where we're not running that quick, it probably it works for me. It might not work for everyone else, but definitely injury, as you saw in Daytona, Sebi and Alistair, two of the top athletes on the planet. Getting injured on a race day. I mean, that's that's always not great to see. I've been really fortunate to not have to deal with that type of thing. So, and fingers crossed going forward, I don't have to in the future either. Yeah.
The nice thing, I'm sure when you signed on with Ineos, the idea was that you work early season and then start gearing up for Ironman. But at the end of the day, this turned out, and most of us haven't been able to race. And you've been able to keep a high level of fitness, obviously, this entire year. At the end of the day, you must look at this and go, that was probably the best move I ever made.
It's very fun. I mean, things happen for a reason often, don't they? You never might not know why at the time. And I mean, I never really anticipated like that. The idea was, be a part of the team early in the year, be available to race, supplement my training with that, and then get ready for Kona. And as it went on, it didn't pan out that way. Now, I did actually want to race Ironman Arizona, which was 2 weeks after the Vuelta. We really planned on going to do that. But then with the bubbles, with the COVID protocols, it meant I couldn't swim during the Vuelta. I couldn't swim when I was at the Classics because you couldn't leave the bubble. So that sort of made that a little bit touch and go. But for an Ironman, I probably still would have taken the punt, because you've got a lot longer to get yourself back into the race if you don't have such a good swim. Anyway, that got cancelled. So when that happened, I really wasn't too keen on, trying to go to another race, even Daytona, because, just in this time, you just never really knew what was going to happen. I didn't like setting myself up and trying to make plans and then them being changed. So, but yeah, I was, really fortunate to be able to do what I did. And when we realized Kona wasn't going to happen, we just basically focused 100% on the cycling, because it was an opportunity to do that, knowing that it wasn't really till October next year that I really needed to make sure I was at the top of my game again for Ironman. So I've got plenty of time to get ready for that. And also it meant that I could probably race at a higher level than I otherwise would have had I've tried to balance both of the sports. And really now going forward into next year, we've got a much better idea of potentially how to balance both of them and get even more out of cycling than we maybe anticipated, as opposed to sort of, just being there to sort of help out where I can, to a point where now, I think I can be competitive in cycling and competitive, in triathlon. And that's obviously the goal. I don't want to be participating in both. I want to be, really good. Obviously in cycling, that means really good at the role I have in the team. And obviously continue my progression in triathlon, because in Ironman, because last year I had a fantastic year, and I've made sure that this year, I've improved across the board in all disciplines.
So you've been able to do a lot of running throughout this season as well, even with all the cycling?
Yeah, so particularly during lockdown, I was really lucky. The Enduran, the police let me train at one of the abandoned ski resort car parks, which was basically a 3/4 mile dead flat lap. And so I would just go up there early in the morning. It's 2,000 meters. So I was training like a Kenyan and just cut laps and laps and laps. I'd do up to 25K up there and just do a few one way, change direction, go back the other way, cut across, make a figure eight, and I got a big block of running in for about 4 months during the middle of the year, 4 to 5 months. And then once racing started again, we slowly backed that off, knowing that I'd end up doing the Giro or the Vuelta. And as we got closer to the Giro, really cut the running out just to make sure I'd be fresh for that. Obviously, I didn't start the Giro, but that meant then I was definitely starting the Vuelta, and then made sure I was as fresh as possible and focused on that. So it was really only probably 6 weeks of the year that I wasn't training really at a normal sort of Ironman kind of level as I would have been otherwise with my running and swimming. And obviously now I'm back into my swimming and running full gas. So I certainly feel really good. It's good sometimes having a break too.
Sure.
Having the forced break from the running, it actually gave me a chance to really think about how I wanted to feel running, how I wanted to look, how I could feel lighter on my feet. I'm more conscious, obviously, of the fatigue of running now because I want to be as fresh as I possibly can to race my bike because that's so high octane. When you're tired, you just really notice it at that top end. And when I run now, I'm trying to get the work done, but make it as easy as possible on my legs so that they're as fresh as possible when I start, riding. And yeah, I think that that's something that I'm going to take into next year and be a huge advantage because it'll mean I'll probably be able to do greater volume, and it'll mean I'll be able to probably train harder, across the board. So yeah, always looking, no matter the circumstances, Bob. I'm always looking for a way to improve.
So when you came away from, well, one, you're in, right? You won Ironman Italy, so you're qualified.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm already qualified for Kona. Yeah.
So coming away with 5th and running 2:55, what'd you take away from that?
I was a little flat that day. I think racing Italy I still don't regret racing Italy a few weeks before. I regret the travel. Right. That's the thing that got me. I wish I'd done Wisconsin or something 3 weeks before in America, and been here. And so I was just a bit flat. I struggled once I got here, I just struggled to get back in a routine. And on race day, it just felt like I hadn't trained for a month, which is basically what had kind of inadvertently happened. It wasn't meant to be that way. I was meant to sort of train through Italy, but as I said, traveling and jet lag and all that, it just caught up with me. So yeah, that was probably the biggest thing, just making sure. I think physically I was in really good shape. And if I'd been sharper, like for example, the year before when I felt fantastic and was much more aggressive in the swim, much more aggressive in the first part of the bike, it would have been great to combine those 2 years. But of course that doesn't happen. And always, you deal with whatever you dealt with on the day. And with how I felt that day, that was the best I could possibly do. I was absolutely wrapped. I had no place believing I could beat any of those 4 guys in front of me. You got 2 guys that have finished second, 2 guys that have won the thing, one guy multiple times. I was absolutely honored to be on that podium with those 4 guys. And, obviously the natural progression. And I really believe that next year I can, I can finish higher. And that's the one thing that drives me in sport. And so yeah, can't wait for that.
Well, and then hopefully the week after you win Ironman, you'll be back at our San Diego Triathlon Challenge.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah. It's just incredible how, the things you miss and that, that whole routine. We just got so used to it, Fallon and I traveling. And of course with, White this year and, so excited about doing that. And it's obviously you got Kona, which is the greatest triathlon on the planet. and then you've got the best full weekend of triathlon with your San Diego challenge, and so it's just the best week, the best week of the entire year. And as long as we're around and in this sport, and we'll definitely be doing everything we can to be at both.
Love it. Cam, as always, thank you for taking so much time. Congratulations to you and Fallon on Wyatt. He looks like he's so much fun.
He's a doozy. He's full gas into his swimming already. So Kona, he'll be 18 months. So I'm thinking Iron Kids is a possibility. I realize it's probably under the age limit, but we might be able to fudge the entry form or something, squeeze him in there. So he's in Andorra. He's in Andorra, so he's training at altitude. So he's off to a great start for if he wants to be an endurance athlete. No pressure, but it's been fantastic, and can't wait to obviously Kona, and then bring him down to the CAF weekend afterwards next year, and meet you all, and another journey in life. It's this sport's been so good to me, since I've come into it, since I've met all of you guys. I mean, you and Heidi obviously at the top of that list, and we just love being a part of this family, and can't wait for next year as things get a little bit more back to normal.
Thanks so much, Cam. Cam Wurf has been our guest. Again, Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. We will catch you next time. Thanks, Cam.
Pleasure. Thanks, Bob. Cheers.